Stop scrolling right now. That leftover rice sitting in your refrigerator, the chicken you plan to microwave tonight, the spinach you cooked yesterday and saved for later, these foods are undergoing a chemical transformation that researchers at Stanford Medicine have now linked to measurable, cumulative cancer risk. Not a theoretical risk, a documented one, a quiet, invisible process happening inside your storage containers every single night while you sleep. Here is a number I want you to carry with you through this entire video. 1 in 6. That is the proportion of all cancer cases worldwide that researchers now associate with dietary factors. Not just what people eat, but how it is stored, how it is reheated, and what happens at the molecular level during that second pass through your microwave. According to data published in CA, a cancer journal for clinicians, poor dietary habits are the second leading modifiable risk factor for cancer globally, ranking just behind tobacco use. Yet, almost nobody in mainstream medicine is talking about what happens to certain everyday foods when you apply heat to them for the second time. The chemical reactions are completely silent. You cannot see them, you cannot smell them, but they are building up inside your food and then inside your body. Let me ask you something personal right now. How many times this week did you reheat leftover chicken? How many mornings did you microwave yesterday's scrambled eggs? How many nights did you warm up cooked spinach as a side dish, thinking you were making the healthy choice? If you answered yes to even one of those questions, please stay with me, because what I am about to tell you is the information that most physicians simply do not have time to explain in a 15-minute appointment. But it is information that could genuinely change how you make decisions in your kitchen every single day. My name is Dr. William Lee. For more than 20 years, I have worked at the intersection of nutritional biochemistry and preventive oncology. I trained in internal medicine and later completed advanced fellowship research studying precisely how cooking methods, heat exposure, and food storage alter the molecular structure of the foods we eat every day. For this video, I have reviewed hundreds of peer-reviewed studies. Every claim I make is sourced from published research in journals including Food Chemistry, the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry, Carcinogenesis, and Lancet Oncology. I am not here to sell you anything. I am not here to push supplements or fear-based products. I am here because preventive medicine begins with knowledge, and the knowledge I am about to give you is something that most people, even most doctors, have never connected to the simple act of reheating leftovers. Now, I want to say something important before we go any further. I know that what I am describing may feel alarming, and I understand that reaction completely, but I want to be clear. We are not talking about a single meal causing cancer. We are talking about the slow, cumulative buildup of specific compounds over months and years, the kind of silent cellular damage that never announces itself, never causes immediate pain, but gradually shifts the biological environment inside your body in a direction that chronic disease, including cancer, can exploit. That is what makes this so important to understand now, before it becomes relevant for the wrong reasons. And before we dive into the 4 specific foods, I want to invite you to join this channel. Every week I publish a new video following this exact approach, peer-reviewed science translated into the clear, practical language that you can actually apply. If you find real value in what I share today, hit subscribe and turn on notifications, but only if this genuinely resonates with you. The community we are building here is one grounded in honest information, and that is worth more than a subscriber count. Let us start with the first food, and I want you to pay close attention here because this is probably the most surprising one on the list, and it is also the most universal. Almost every household on Earth does this without a second thought. Food number 1, cooked rice. Rice feeds more than 3 billion people every day. It is the most widely consumed staple on the planet. And when dinner is over and there is rice left in the pot, virtually every household stores it in the refrigerator and reheats it tomorrow. It is automatic. It feels completely harmless. Here is what is happening inside that container overnight. When rice is cooked and allowed to cool, it creates nearly ideal conditions for the growth of a bacterium called Bacillus cereus. Think of this bacterium like a stowaway that boarded your rice long before it ever reached your kitchen. It is naturally present in raw rice. It survives the initial cooking process without being destroyed. It simply becomes dormant while temperatures are high. The moment your cooked rice begins to cool, Bacillus cereus wakes up and begins multiplying, producing heat-resistant toxins as it goes. The word heat-resistant is critical here. When you reheat that rice the next day, the high temperature may kill the bacteria themselves, but the toxins they have already deposited throughout your food, those survive. They survive the microwave, they survive the stovetop, and they enter your digestive system completely intact. Now, that is the acute food safety concern. But there is a second mechanism connected to reheated rice that receives far less attention in popular health content. And this one is specifically connected to long-term cancer risk. When starch-rich foods like rice are repeatedly exposed to high heat, a chemical reaction occurs between their natural sugars and an amino acid called asparagine. The product of this reaction is acrylamide. The International Agency for Research on Cancer classifies acrylamide as a group 2A carcinogen, meaning it is probably carcinogenic to humans, and a 2022 analysis published in Food and Chemical Toxicology found that acrylamide levels in reheated starchy foods were measurably and significantly higher compared to foods prepared fresh. For someone who eats reheated rice 4 or 5 times per week, that exposure accumulates year after year in a way that individual laboratory measurements cannot fully capture. So, what do? Cook rice fresh whenever it is practical. If you need to store it, spread it across a flat tray immediately after cooking so it cools quickly and evenly. Refrigerate it within 1 hour. Consume stored rice within 24 hours, and never reheat it more than once under any circumstances. Now, if you thought that first food was concerning, what comes next will affect a very different kind of person. Because this second food is not associated with careless eating. It is the foundation of the clean diet, the meal prep lifestyle, the health-conscious routine that millions of seniors have built their entire week around. And if you are one of them, I need you to hear this carefully. Food number 2, cooked chicken. The world's most popular lean protein, recommended by cardiologists, endorsed by dietitians, promoted across every mainstream nutrition platform as the gold standard of healthy eating. And when leftover chicken goes into the refrigerator after dinner, almost every household reheats it the next day without a single second thought. Because it is lean, it is protein-rich, and it feels responsible. Here is the biochemical reality of what happens when you apply heat to cooked poultry for the second time. Chicken contains dense, tightly structured proteins from its muscle tissue. When you cook chicken for the first time, heat unwinds and reshapes those protein structures. Think of it like coils of wire being heated and reshaped into a new form. That reshaping is what makes the meat firm, safe, and digestible. But when you refrigerate that cooked chicken and then expose it to high temperatures again, something fundamentally different occurs at the molecular level. Those protein structures, already altered once, do not simply reshape a second time. They begin to break apart. And the molecular fragments that result from that breakdown can combine with other compounds naturally present in the meat to form a class of chemicals called heterocyclic amines, or HCAs. What do HCAs do inside your body? Once they enter your digestive system, your liver enzymes convert them into highly reactive compounds that can bind directly to your DNA. Not indirectly, not theoretically, directly. This is one of the most extensively documented dietary carcinogen mechanisms in the entire scientific literature. A landmark study published in Carcinogenesis found that individuals who frequently consumed reheated poultry had a statistically significant increase in colorectal cancer risk. A separate analysis from the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health found that regular consumption of reheated processed chicken was associated with elevated pancreatic cancer risk. Pancreatic cancer, the one with a 5-year survival rate of 11%, not 50%, not 30%, 11. How many times a week do you eat reheated chicken? How many containers of meal-prepped poultry go into that microwave on a Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday? I am not asking to make you feel guilty. I am asking because the answer matters, and it is something you can actually change starting tonight. What should you do instead? If you have leftover cooked chicken, eat it cold. In a wrap, a salad. Slice directly from the container. If warming is genuinely necessary, use the lowest effective temperature and never allow the chicken to be exposed to repeated high heat. Avoid the microwave for reheated poultry whenever you have another option. Combining what I have just told you with what comes next, this is where things get genuinely surprising for most people. Because this third food is not something anyone in the health world associates with risk. In fact, it is one that doctors, nutritionists, and cardiologists have been recommending for decades as one of the most protective foods you can put on your plate. And they are right when you eat it the right way. Food number 3, spinach, and other nitrate-rich leafy greens including Swiss chard, celery, beets, and lettuce. Spinach is among the most nutritionally celebrated vegetables in existence, rich in iron, folate, magnesium, and powerful antioxidants. Every major health organization on the planet encourages you to eat more of it. And the research on fresh spinach or spinach eaten immediately after a single round of cooking is genuinely strong and positive. The problem is not the spinach itself. The problem is what happens to it inside your refrigerator after it has already been cooked, and what occurs chemically when you reheat it the following day. Spinach is one of the richest dietary sources of naturally occurring nitrates. In their natural form, these nitrates are beneficial. They help regulate blood pressure, support cardiovascular function, and contribute to healthy circulation. But the moment cooked spinach goes into a cold storage environment, a process begins that most people have never considered. The bacteria that naturally live on the surface of the spinach leaves begin converting those beneficial nitrates into nitrites. This is the identical chemical conversion that takes place in commercially processed deli meats. It is precisely why the World Health Organization classified processed meat as a Group 1 confirmed human carcinogen in 2015. Now, think about what happens when you take spinach that has been sitting in your refrigerator for 24 hours or more, and you apply heat to it again. You are warming a vegetable that has already undergone substantial nitrate to nitrite conversion during storage. Under the influence of that reheating, those nitrites can react with the amino acids naturally present in the spinach and later in your stomach environment to form nitrosamines. Nitrosamines are classified by every major cancer research body as among the most potent dietary carcinogens ever identified. The European Food Safety Authority has issued formal public guidance warning specifically about the risks of reheating nitrate-rich vegetables after they have been refrigerated following cooking. The epidemiological research is consistent and clear. High dietary nitrosamine exposure is associated with elevated risk of gastric cancer, esophageal cancer, and colorectal cancer. These are not edge case cancers with narrow demographic profiles. These are among the most common cancers affecting older adults in the United States. And here's the part that I find most difficult to say, because it speaks to how completely counterintuitive this risk is. One of the most nutritionally powerful, health-protective foods available to us can become a source of carcinogenic compounds through nothing more than a storage habit. A habit practiced by millions of thoughtful, health-conscious people every week who have absolutely no idea it is happening. What should you do? Cook spinach and other leafy greens fresh. Eat them immediately after cooking. If you have leftovers, consume them cold within 6 hours rather than reheating them. Do not refrigerate cooked leafy greens with the plan of warming them later. Either eat them cold or start fresh. This is the simplest behavioral change on this entire list, and it requires nothing more than a shift in timing. Now, I told you at the beginning of this video that the fourth food would be the most surprising one, and I want you to hold on to that expectation for a moment, because what I am about to tell you genuinely challenges one of the most universally held beliefs in senior nutrition. Because this food is not just commonly reheated, it is actively promoted by physicians and nutritionists as one of the most complete, most protective foods available to older adults, which is exactly why the reheating risk associated with it is so critical to understand. Food number 4, eggs. The nutritional profile of an egg is remarkable. All 9 essential amino acids, significant choline for brain health, selenium for antioxidant defense, lutein and zeaxanthin for cellular protection. By nearly every nutritional measure, eggs are genuinely excellent food. Cooked fresh, eaten immediately. The problem is what happens when a cooked egg goes into the refrigerator and is then reheated at high temperature the following morning. Let me walk you through the mechanism step by step, because understanding how this works is what makes the solution obvious. Eggs contain approximately 13% fat, and most of that fat is concentrated in the yolk. When you cook an egg for the first time, the fats in the yolk undergo what biochemists call primary lipid oxidation. Some degree of oxidation during initial cooking is unavoidable and manageable. Your body handles it. But here is where the second round of heat changes everything fundamentally. When a cooked egg is refrigerated and then subjected to high temperature again, those already oxidized fats undergo secondary lipid oxidation at a dramatically accelerated rate. The compounds produced during this process are called oxysterols. Do you know what oxysterols are? They are oxidized forms of cholesterol, and they develop specifically when cholesterol-containing foods are exposed to heat repeatedly. A comprehensive review published in Food and Chemical Toxicology concluded that oxysterols carry what the researchers specifically called genotoxic effects on human cells. Genotoxic. That word carries enormous scientific weight. It means toxic to the genetic material inside your cells, toxic to your DNA. By definition, any compound classified as genotoxic is considered a potential carcinogen, because genotoxic damage can produce the DNA strand breaks and genetic mutations that initiate cancer at the cellular level. There is a second concern connected to reheated eggs that receives almost no public attention. The sulfur-containing amino acids naturally present in egg protein, cysteine, and methionine specifically, can degrade under repeated high-temperature exposure. The degradation products from these amino acids contribute to oxidative stress within the mucosal lining of your digestive tract. And persistent oxidative stress affecting that gut lining is now recognized as one of the primary biological mechanisms involved in the development of colorectal cancer. Colorectal cancer is the third most common cancer in the world. It kills nearly 1 million people every single year. Eggs cooked fresh and eaten immediately remain genuinely excellent nutrition, but scrambled eggs microwaved from the refrigerator the next morning are a chemically different food, one that carries documented risks your physician has almost certainly never discussed with you, because most physicians were never trained in the molecular chemistry of food reheating. That is not a criticism. It is simply a gap in how medical education is structured, and it is precisely the gap that this channel exists to fill. What should you do? Cook eggs fresh whenever possible. If you prepare hard-boiled eggs in advance, store them with the shells still on, and eat them cold rather than reheating them. Never microwave scrambled eggs or omelets. If you absolutely must warm an egg-based dish, use indirect gentle heat at the lowest possible temperature. Now, most people stop here. They read a headline or two, feel momentarily concerned, and then go right back to their usual habits because change feels complicated. But I am going to ask you to stay with me just a little longer, because the next part is where most people experience their biggest insight. Not from the statistics, but from understanding the simple, low-effort adjustments that make all the difference. Let me also take a moment to address something that I hear regularly from people who encounter this information for the first time. The question is always some version of this. If reheating food is this harmful, why are not more people getting sick? And the answer is important, because it speaks to why this risk is so easy to dismiss. Cancer does not develop overnight. It is a long, slow biological process. The compounds we are discussing, the acrylamide, the heterocyclic amines, the nitrosamines, the oxysterols, do not cause a single meal to be immediately dangerous. What they do is create conditions of repeated cellular stress, repeated DNA exposure, repeated oxidative burden that accumulates gradually over years. The human body is remarkably resilient. It repairs itself constantly. But when you are providing it with a steady low-level supply of these compounds 5 times a week, 52 weeks a year, for a decade or more, the cumulative biological cost eventually reaches a tipping point that even a resilient body cannot fully compensate for. This is also why dietary risk factors for cancer are so profoundly underestimated by the general public, because there is no single moment you can point to and say, that meal caused this. The connection is statistical, epidemiological, and time-delayed, which means that by the time the consequences become visible, the habit has been in place for years. Here is what I want you to take away from that. The same time delay that makes the risk hard to recognize is also what makes early behavioral change so powerful. If you change these habits today, you are intervening at a point in time where your body still has the full capacity to repair the accumulated damage and restore normal cellular function. That window does not stay open forever, but right now, for most people watching this video, it is still wide open. I also want to address one more thing specifically about eggs, because I have found that this is where people push back the hardest. The typical objection sounds like this: eggs have been part of the human diet for thousands of years. How can they suddenly be dangerous? And my answer is always the same. The egg has not changed. The cooking technology has. The lifestyle context has. For most of human history, people cooked an egg and ate it, immediately, from the fire to the plate. The concept of cooking 6 scrambled eggs on Sunday, refrigerating them in a sealed container, and then microwaving a portion each morning for the next 6 days is an entirely modern behavior. One that the human digestive system and the chemistry of egg proteins and fats was never designed to accommodate. This is not about the egg being a bad food. This is about a specific interaction between egg chemistry and repeated high-temperature exposure that produces compounds our ancestors never encountered because they never reheated their food this way. Before I give you the complete practical protocol, I want to share something with you, because data and mechanisms are important, but they do not always land the way a real person's story does. Charles Norris is 65 years old. He spent more than 30 years working as a licensed plumber in Sacramento, California, demanding physical work, long days on job sites. By the time he retired, he had never been seriously ill. He was proud of that. When he retired, Charles decided to get serious about his health. He started meal prepping every Sunday: a large pot of rice, several pounds of baked chicken, a full skillet of sautéed spinach. He portioned everything into containers, refrigerated them, and reheated them throughout the week. He added scrambled eggs to his breakfast rotation, cooking a large batch on Sunday mornings and microwaving portions each day. He told me, and I remember his exact words, that he thought he was doing everything right. Lean protein, vegetables, whole grains. That is what every health resource he found told him to do. And by conventional standards, looking at his diet on paper, he looked like a model of healthy senior eating. 2 years after he retired, Charles was diagnosed with early-stage colorectal cancer. He was 63 years old, no family history of the disease, no smoking, no significant alcohol use. When we sat down together and I walked him through the science of what was happening inside his reheated food, he went very quiet. After a long pause, he looked at me and said, "Nobody ever told me that how you reheat it matters. I just assumed heat was heat." Charles completed treatment and is doing well today. But he will tell you himself, without hesitation, that the hardest part of his diagnosis was understanding that the habits he believed were protecting him had been doing silent, invisible damage over 2 years of weekly repetition. Not one bad meal. 2 years of consistent, well-intentioned meal prep. That is why I am telling you all of this today. Not to frighten you away from your kitchen, not to make every leftover feel dangerous, but because Charles deserved to know this before his diagnosis. And so do you. So here is your complete action plan. Simple, practical, starting tonight. Number 1, rice. Cook it fresh whenever possible. If you store it, cool it on a flat tray immediately after cooking and refrigerate within 1 hour. Consume stored rice within 24 hours. Reheat no more than once. Number 2, chicken. Eat leftover poultry cold in salads or wraps. If warming is necessary, use the lowest effective temperature and never microwave on high. Never reheat chicken more than once. Number 3, spinach and leafy greens. Do not reheat them. This is the most straightforward change on this entire list. Eat them cold within 6 hours of cooking or prepare them fresh. That is all it takes. Number 4, eggs. Always cook eggs fresh if possible. Store hard-boiled eggs in their shells and eat them cold. No microwaving scrambled eggs or egg-based dishes. And one universal rule that applies to everything else in your refrigerator. Never reheat any food more than once. 1 cooking, 1 reheating, and after that, discard what remains. That single rule alone will significantly reduce your cumulative exposure to every compound we discussed today. Before you go, I want to make sure you understand why this matters right now, today, not someday when it becomes clinically urgent. The cellular damage we have discussed is cumulative. It does not announce itself. It builds in silence over months and years. But the moment you change the habit, that accumulation stops. Your body begins working in your favor again. And that shift can begin with the very next meal you prepare. Think about one person in your life who reheats leftovers every single day without a second thought. A spouse, a sibling, an adult child who meal preps every Sunday and reheats the same containers all week. A close friend who microwaves spinach for lunch every afternoon because they think they are making the responsible, health-conscious choice. They do not know what you know right now. And you can change that in less than 10 seconds by sharing this video with them. Not to alarm them, not to lecture them, simply to give them the same information you now have, because they deserve the chance to make an informed decision about their own health. And remember, this information is provided for educational purposes only. It is not a substitute for personal medical advice. If you have specific health concerns, please speak with your own physician or a qualified healthcare professional. The science I have presented reflects published research available at the time of this video, and I encourage you to investigate it further. Stay strong, stay curious, and never stop learning about your body. I am Dr. William Lee, and I will be here with more every single week.